The Red Sox rotation is set for the 2023 season.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN, Lauren Willand, and it's pretty crazy to think that after this week, it will only be 3 or 4 days away from opening day. It's coming, Lauren. It's coming.
It's here last weekend without regular season baseball. So it's exciting. Things are really starting to take shape. Maybe Friday's lineup for the spring training game is kind of a sneak peek at the opening day lineup. So it's a very, very exciting time. And Justin Turner's back in the field. First time he's actually playing the field since getting hit and not just being in the lineup. So very exciting to see. And now we have our starting rotation. And despite the injuries, you look at it, and it's the best that they can do with what they've got. And I'm going to talk about this on the season preview that comes out on Tuesday. We've talked about this all off season. There is potential there for this to be a solid lineup, but a lot has to go right. Rotation, not lineup. Right. A lot has to go right for this rotation to be good.
And, you mentioned the injury concerns. I think even when guys start to come back, there will still be some of those concerns down the stretch of the season of 162. We know how different things can come up, but it is nice to see that questions are being answered. It's at that point of spring training where the overanalyzing, the questions that we've been coming up with over the last month or so are finally starting to get answers from Alex Cora. And, it was nice to see the whole 1 through 5. And it's not sort of like a guess of looking at, the schedule and trying to figure out which guys are going to go where. But I think as well, what we've been able to see from different players like Kutter, Crawford, Josh Winkowski, we're going to talk more about them as the episode goes on. It's sort of a glimpse of what hopefully we see once the season does ultimately start. And I also did want to mention too, you brought up Justin Turner. Saw that picture, wasn't expecting it to be as graphic, but holy crap, him coming back in just a week and a half span, not a lot of people have been able to do that.
Yeah, his face is very, very swollen. And in the picture that's been circulating on Twitter on Friday, he posted those to his Instagram about a week ago, but now people are starting to screen cap and show off the picture. He looks like Phil Kessel. And if no one knows who Phil Kessel is, he played for the Bruins a long time ago. He's still in the NHL. Just look him up. They kind of look alike. And I was like, oh, they could be brothers right there. But yeah, it's crazy to look at that picture and looking as the progression went on in his Instagram, where he's showing like day by day of the swelling. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible that he's back in the lineup, because you're getting hit at such a fast rate of speed. And he was describing there was so much blood. He didn't really know what was going on. And he's so lucky that there was no fractures. Just watching that, I feel like my face shattered into a million pieces.
Even like a concussion too, because
right.
I've had a friend who's gotten hit in the face, but in high school ball, and it was only 85 miles per hour, and he still had a concussion. But who knows how fast Turner's was? Right. Probably lower 90s, mid 90s, but still, got to commend the guy for going back with his team and doing everything he can to be ready for opening day. Because even I remember when TC talked to him after his debut coming back, he was like, yeah, there's no question I'll be ready for opening day. And it's nice to hear that as a Red Sox fan with all of this list of guys who won't be ready for opening day. But one other thing that I wanted to mention before we get sort of into the rotation preview, I wanted to thank the Carabas Pod for shouting out Locked On Red Sox in their last episode. It's been great to, build relationships with Tyler as well as Jared, over the last year or so. But if you're listening to this podcast from the Carabas Pod, welcome. We greatly appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully what we're going to be talking about over the next 15 to 20 minutes will draw you in and will make you a consistent listener. But over these next few days leading into opening day, we're going to be previewing different areas of the team to help you be as prepared and knowledgeable regarding the Boston Red Sox going into the 2023 season. We're hoping to have some very big guests coming on as well to bring you some expert analysis as well. But for this topic, the rotation, we're going to start off with Corey Kluber, who is going to be the opening day starter. And, looking at the stats so far in spring training, and obviously spring training stats don't obviously tell the whole picture, but he's been the best pitcher in the rotation thus far.
Yeah, and I could sit here and say that's why he's the opening day starter, but Alex Cora made that decision long before he announced it. But he's done everything right to earn that spot, regardless of how Cora felt 2 months ago when he told Kluber that he was going to be the opening day starter. And maybe he just needed that extra motivation behind him to pitch like he's been one of the. I mean, we know he's good when he's healthy, and he's showing it this spring. And yes, there was some time when he was signed to the Red Sox when fans were like, okay, he's a bit older. Like, what does he have left? If this is what he has left, I think fans will be very, very happy. So now it just needs to translate into opening day, and we'll soon find out if he has what it takes to be in this rotation. Obviously, through spring training, he's shown just that. He has a great ERA. He looks like he has good command. He looks very comfortable out there, and that's what's incredibly important going into next week.
Right. And, going into his age 37 season, as you mentioned, a little bit on the older side, doesn't have the same kick to his pitches that he might have had when he won his 2 Cy Young awards. But from what we've seen so far in spring training, has had pinpoint stuff, really used all 4 of his pitches in great fashion. And, you mentioned the ERA, 2.13 over 12.2 innings, 14 strikeouts, 142 whip. And, that's kind of what you want to see from an older guy who doesn't really have the same stuff as he used to be, is having good control and being able to paint the edges when you need to avoid getting, I know you love this, ducks on the pond. And I think especially with what the Red Sox are really going to need from Corey Kluber to sort of not fully be that frontline starter, but to be that catalyst of the rotation that will be able to help build momentum going throughout the rest of the starters.
Yeah, that's the important part too, is maybe he can set this tone, and then it's going to go right to Chris Sale, who I'm sure tons of eyes will be on Chris Sale when he gets the ball, and it'll be the last time he was on the mound, he got his finger blown off. So let's hope for something much better this time around. But if Kluber can put together a good start and go out and give the ball to Sale, and then he can start and just kind of set that tone, especially when you have guys that like Kutter, Crawford in the lineup who maybe wouldn't make the starting rotation if everyone is healthy. He probably doesn't make the starting rotation if everyone's healthy. But if this can set the tone, that's a good start for the Red Sox. They really need to have a good start. Last year, we know what happened last year was not that great. We do not want the same thing to happen this year for the Red Sox, but a good start is incredibly important, and that starts with winning opening day.
And, I think as well, the last time we've seen a great start from a Red Sox team is 2018. And, they got swept by the Orioles and looked abysmal.
Right.
But, even if that happens, this first series, you can kind of sort of have the motivation or at least try and trick yourself to believe that, if they don't do well in the first series of the Orioles, we remember what happened, the last time that happened. Not saying anywhere close that this team is anywhere close to the 2018's talent level, but at the same time, you got to believe, you know what I mean? Who knows? And I think as well, with a guy like Chris Sale, he can hopefully look a lot better than he did in his last start. Obviously, we spoke about that in a few episodes ago, and he's sort of shed light on that. A lot of his struggles stemmed from his inability to have a dominant slider. He said, my front side is a little bit lost with that one right now. And, he also mentioned as well, he's like, you want to go through these here because when those bright lights flick on, it's a tougher situation to get through those types of situations. And especially if he's able to have this week to figure out what didn't go right, hopefully it all pans out well in the second game of the season.
And we know that Chris Sale, of all people, he's going to work as hard as he possibly can to correct any wrongs before he gets the ball. He knows that it's an important start for him. It doesn't matter about, what others think of him. It's an important start for him. And he's mentioned that, how important it was to have his family in attendance for his first bullpen when he was throwing to batters. And now he's, this is it. This is game action. This is the first time he's been on the mound since last July. And he's battled so many different injuries since 2020. He hasn't really been healthy. And this is the season that he can really prove that he can stay healthy. He can be, maybe he can return to the ace form of the staff and just put together a solid season. And we all know Chris Sale, no one's going to work harder than Chris Sale to make sure he's right for game 2 and beyond. And if it is a bad outing or a rough outing, he's going to hold himself accountable, and he's going to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. But it's, I think it's encouraging to see him, it's like, yeah, it wasn't my best start, but I'm going to do what I have to do to make this right and be healthy for game 2, because we're not starting the season 0-2.
Right, I completely agree, and I think the other thing for Red Sox fans to note is that he only made 3 starts in spring training, so he's still trying to build himself back up in regular game action, and this is, as you mentioned, this is going to be his first regular season game since he got his finger blown off. So even though he's had some time, in those, as he said, those bright lights, when the regular season is ultimately happening, I don't see that pressure getting to him in any way, shape, or form, but like he's got a lot on his shoulders to ultimately be a dominant pitcher to help this Red Sox rotation, actually flourish. And so I think, giving him some time to really be able to feel himself out in regular season play, going against high talent lineups rather than what he's faced so far in spring training or so. You got to take his starts with a little bit of a grain of salt. And, if he allows 2 to 3 runs in his first 2 or 3 starts, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
The thing to keep in mind is, Whitlock and Bayo probably are going to be back within the first 2 weeks. Paxton probably will miss until April. But when you get those 2 guys to really balance out the rotation, there's not going to be as much pressure as there is on Sale and Kluber to really be sort of the bridge to some of these lower end starters, like Houck, Crawford, and Pivetta, who you really know what you're kind of going to get.
Yeah, you said it. You know what you're going to get. Crawford's had a great spring. I think he's looked very good, and he has earned his spot on the rotation. And I'm happy. I'm happy for him. I hope that it pans out, and I hope that everything that we saw in spring training will be the same that we see in the regular season. I want it to be hard on Alex Cora, because I want there to be a lot of depth on this team. I want him to have these hard decisions to make, because we see it with teams when they have the good depth, how much further they can get into the season. And when you think of the Yankees last year, they built themselves such a comfortable lead in the AL East that when injuries started to happen, it almost didn't matter. It slumps, it didn't really matter, because they built that lead. And not saying that the Red Sox are going to go out and win the AL East by any means, but when you have when you have the depth, so if Crawford goes out, he does really well during the time that the rotation is not healthy, and everyone seems to be doing their job when it is healthy, and then someone goes down, you can rely on Crawford to come in, and it's not going to be like last year where it's like, oh no, Kutter Crawford again. Oh no, Josh Winkowski again. Right. We can't. So this is going to be an automatic loss, and he's going to get shelled for 6 runs over 2 innings. You don't want that feeling. And I hope that it works out well for Crawford, because he's really turned it around the spring training. Whatever he did in the offseason has worked, and now it just needs to work in the regular season.
And I think Heimblum said it multiple times. If we have too much quality depth, that's never a bad thing. And when you have to make those tough decisions, you'd rather have that than not have enough quality options to fill in those different spots that you may have had open due to injuries or whatever came up. But we're going to speak more in depth about Tanner Houck, Kutter Crawford, and Nick Pivetta and the rest of the rotation more going into our second segment. But before we do that, Lauren just wants to talk to you about Ultimate Baseball GM.
So I've been playing this game for a few weeks now, and as much as I am so bad at it, I'm having so much fun, and I'm so excited that they're our new partner and sponsor of today's episode, Ultimate Baseball GM. It's a mobile game for your cell phone, and if you've ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM, managing a professional baseball franchise, this is your dream come true right in your hands, and this game is one for you. You manage every strategic aspect of your team. You play through the season, and you hopefully lead your team to glory. You're responsible things for like hiring the right coaches and staff. You're managing team finances, which is not my strong suit. Numbers are not good. Scouting and drafting players, and you have to manage those difficult personalities. So you have to find out who's going to mesh with who's the clubhouse cancer, who are the people you have to get rid of, try to trade, all of that. You are in the driver's seat. You are controlling this team. You navigate your franchise through free agency and all the ups and downs of the season. And it's a challenging game. It's realistic. We're all having fun on the Locked On Network playing. Like I said, I know I'm not very good at it, and I've been fired already, but that's, what's a little adversity among co-hosts. And if you want to play this game, you want to take on me, you want to take on Jake. Like I said, I'm not very good. I'm better than Jake though. And that's something I can hang my hat on.
Yes, you definitely is.
Make sure you download the game. You don't even need Wi-Fi to play. So if your power goes out and you just want to waste some time by playing this game, you don't need to worry about Wi-Fi hookups. You can play this game anywhere. And Locked On Red Sox listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check that out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, or you can scan the barcode right here if you are watching on YouTube. It'll bring you right to where you need to download it. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. And before I let you go, I'm going to talk to you about Gametime. Buying tickets can be a very stressful situation, and it shouldn't be. It should be super easy. We can do everything on our phones, including buying tickets to games. And with all, especially in Boston, Red Sox are starting. The Bruins and Celtics are just so much fun to watch. Before we know it, it's going to be Patriots season. You want to be able to get your tickets to any game, and that's why Gametime is the fastest, one of the easiest ways to buy tickets for sports, for music. If you want to try your hand at getting Taylor Swift tickets, comedy shows, anything near you, there's killer deals on last-minute tickets. Jake talked about how you used Gametime before, and it was so easy just getting tickets right before game time at one of the best prices you've ever had. Super, super competitive prices. You will not regret using Gametime. There's flash deals and last-minute tickets if you want to go to the big game, or if you're just in the city and you're like, hey, there's a game tonight, there's a concert tonight, I'm going to go on Gametime. I am going to use it. So you don't need to plan months in advance because there's deals right up to the day of the game. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So these guys are the real deal. They want you to have the best possible ticket buying experience. And you can get an image of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what your seat will look like. Jake, you also mentioned that, how
it's so helpful.
It's so helpful because Fenway does have the poles, unfortunately, and you do have the obstructed view. But when you have the Gametime app, you can see, oh, am I going to be at that pole going to obstruct my view of third base, first base, or am I going to have the best view of Fenway Park? Especially if you've never been to Fenway or any ballpark or any venue before, it is the most helpful thing to do in this app, is just see exactly where you're sitting. So snag your tickets without stress with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. There's terms and conditions do apply. Just create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And no joke, Lauren. So, I mean, another great Red Sox podcast out there is Obstructive View from our good friends from Chris Henrique and Jamie Gatlin and Stephen Brown. I never understood why it was called Obstructive View until you literally just said that during the ad read. I'm not even kidding. That's very clever. And you know, we're gonna have Chris on during Monday's episode. And he's the founder of Beyond the Monsters. Yep. So they just had Chaim Bloom on, and so that's one thing that I'm going to tune into right after we get off. So great guys over there, but I think that's hysterical with the whole obstructed view thing.
Full circle moment.
But yeah, exactly. But going into our next starting pitcher in the Red Sox rotation in the 3 spot is Tanner Houck. And he's a pitcher who, right after his last start, I made a little bit of a reactionary tweet, but I honestly believe this. He's not a starting pitcher in my mind.
Yeah.
And, I had some people agree with me. I had some people disagree with me. And I even said in my tweet, spring training, obviously those exact sort of what they do on their output and against those lineups, that's not going to directly correlate to what is going to happen in the regular season. But when you look at his game logs, he hasn't had one good start throughout spring training. Like it's not just like me picking out like 1 or 2 starts. His last start when he let up 8 earned runs, and his start before when he let up 4 earned runs. Those 3 other starts that he made before those, he allowed 2 earned runs. And you can be like, like 2 earned runs, that's not too bad for a number 3 starter. But in those, he also had 4 walks in his first start, and then he also had 2 walks in the other starts. And when you also are tied for the second most home runs in spring training out of all the pitchers, the minor league pitchers too, that are also going as well. And you're supposed to be a number 3 starter for the Boston Red Sox. I mean, you've allowed 6 home runs. What are you going to do at Fenway Park, the easiest ballpark to allow home runs? And then when you also look at it as well, yes, like you can say that this is a taken out of context sort of stat. He's only had 4.6 innings in his career as a starter per game. What has he done over his last 6 starts that he's made so far in spring training? 4 to 3 innings. That's not going to pan out as a starting pitcher. That's Garrett Whitlock out of the bullpen. Are you kidding me right now? And the Red Sox need him to go 5 innings or so to be an actual productive and viable starter. But when you have an 8.31 ERA in spring training over 17.1 innings, I don't know how that screams a good starting pitcher. And I understand, what are the guys are they going to be able to have fill in? Do you want, them to bring up guys from AAA? No, I don't want Brandon Walter or Chris Murphy to get shoved in that situation. But at the same time, there's a way to look at it yes, the Red Sox are forced to do this right now, but logically, if Bayo, Paxton, and Whitlock were ready, Tanner Houck wouldn't even come anywhere close to being a starting pitcher. So anybody that thinks that he's a starting pitcher, look at the stats and stop trying to make up in your mind, the Red Sox are forced to do this. I get that. But the reality is he's not a starting pitcher. He's way more effective in the bullpen. That's my rant.
And I don't think you were cherry picking at all or anything. And you weren't saying that he didn't belong on this team. You were just saying that he's more effective out of the bullpen. And I don't think many would disagree with that. And I was willing to give him that chance as a starter because I want Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen. Whatever they have to do to get Garrett Whitlock in that bullpen, that's where I want him to be. But maybe this is just Tanner Houck's calling. They have given him chances, and the walks, whatever, pitchers are going to give up walks. But you looked at his last start, and as well as maybe across all of his starts, his location has been an issue. It's not like he has good command of his pitches. It wasn't like Chris Sale when his velocity was up and people were just hitting him, and he could locate his pitches. Tanner Houck cannot locate his pitches. There's also no trust in his third pitch that he's been working to develop, which big credit to that. That's very difficult to do when you've established, your trust in 2 separate pitches. And you're like, I got to go develop a third if I want to be a starter. But there's not a whole lot of trust in that pitch either. And you can't rely on 2 pitches to be a starter. And I want it to work out. Maybe it's just a bad spring training. We've said it 100 times. These games don't count, but you still want to see the positive side and you want to take the positives away. You don't want to see someone like Tanner Houck, who's going to be the 3 guy in your rotation, not have good starts, not have one good start. And I mean, he said it. He said he sucked. He was like, I don't know what else to say. I sucked. And his ERA is up there. It's above 8, I believe, as we're recording this episode through spring training. And again, the location is what's my biggest red flag with him, is that he has not been able to locate his pitches at all. And maybe that's a catcher pitcher thing. Maybe that's a mental thing, whatever it is. I mean, it needs to get figured out. I think Alex Cora will have a quick arm with him, a quick hook with Houck if he's not, 2 innings, 3 innings in. It's like, all right, but you don't want to waste your bullpen that early in the season, not waste them, but you don't want to burn them out like we've seen so many times. And I think once that everyone is healthy, I mean, if you can slot in Bayo and even if Paxton, if they can be valuable starters, yeah, you're going to have to make the decision of, putting Houck in the bullpen or, does Crawford go to Worcester? There's going to be tough decisions to make once this team is 100% healthy. But I don't think Tanner Houck, I don't think he's in danger of going to Worcester, but I think he's in danger of losing that starting role. And I think that's always kind of been the expectation, that he's getting this opportunity to be a starter to prove that he can be, but they know they can use him out of the bullpen because he was effective out of the bullpen, but he's really got to dazzle in the time that he is a starter, because it's not looking good for Tanner Houck throughout spring training. That's not what I want to see. I want to see the exact opposite of what we've seen from Houck. And if, like I said, I think Alex Cora will have a shorter leash on him, and I don't think he'll have a whole lot of time to be like, oh no, like he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. I think Cora will be like, all right, everyone's healthy. You're back in the bullpen, and we're just going to keep you there.
Right. And the one thing that seeing him say I sucked and seeing him say I know I can be better, I'm hard on myself, that's the most professional way he could have gone about it. And in no way, shape, or form am I crapping on the guy. I want to see him succeed as much as anybody does. But then there's the also whole component as well. How did he get injured last season? You had him teeter-tottering between 2 different roles. And yes, I understand, 2 starts for him, just to begin the season isn't completely going to derail like his ability to be able to pitch in the bullpen, going to injure him again, with his back or like hurt him mentally. But at the same time, you wanted to find a role for a guy and, not have him get comfortable in that role in the bullpen in the middle of the season. And I think as well, I agree with you. I think the leash is going to be very short on him. And, I do really hope that he's able to succeed as a starter when the Red Sox need him to. I think that's what anybody wants. But like there's a difference between delusional optimism and trying to find any good way to spin how he's done so far in the spring, or actually look at the reality. I'm trying to look at the reality and actually try and base off what he's shown so far this season to what we could potentially see in the regular season. So wishing him all the best. Really hope he's able to figure it out. And I hope as well, he's able to help the Red Sox or convince the Red Sox that he should stay here long term. But at the same time, this not only for Houck, but I think for Crawford as well. And you could even say Pivetta could really define how the Red Sox look at these three pitchers throughout the rest of their Red Sox tenure. And, you spoke about Crawford a little bit prior, but I think what he's been able to show, you said it, like a 2.03 ERA in 3 starts thus far, 14 strikeouts, a .98 whip. His command has been unbelievable. He definitely did something, like you said, in the offseason that is 100% working.
And he looks great. This is somebody who came into spring training who knew that he may not have a spot on the 26-man roster. And yes, maybe he's getting that spot because there's injuries already and he would have started in Worcester, had this rotation, had this team been healthy, but he'll be the number 4 starter. So that puts him at April 3rd against the Pirates. So the Pirates, we love Ethan from Locked On Pirates, but the Pirates, I just feel so bad for that franchise sometimes because this is a great franchise too for Kutter Crawford to turn in a good start. You don't want to get shelled by the Pirates because they're the Pirates. We don't need to talk about how bad they are, but with Whitlock and Bayo and Paxton, this opens up the door for Crawford, and I think he's earned his spot 100%. I think that it would have been harder for Cora to start him in Worcester had this team been healthy, but we also have no idea how Bayo and Whitlock would have looked if they stayed healthy. So I think that Crawford really did put in the work in the offseason. He knew that, and we saw good stuff from him last year. It just wasn't consistent. And now that it's been consistent, he's really, whatever he's done, like you said, it is working. And it's going to make that decision on Cora hard when Bayo and Whitlock and Paxton come back, because who's the odd man out? And it could be him. It could be Winkowski. There's going to be really tough decisions to make.
And I think as well, what you were able to see from him on Thursday, throwing 6 innings in his AAA game against the Twins minor leaguers, was intriguing. Over 6 innings, allowed 6 hits, 2 earned runs, a walk, 6 strikeouts, and a home run. And you can easily look at those 2 earned runs, that home run, to be like, if he's going to do that, I don't know how confident I am in him. But, it was over 6 innings, and it shows that he has longevity. And, we saw that last year. He's not like Houck. He's able to go consistently, late 4, 5 innings or so, and even 6 sometimes. I think that's exactly what you need out of Crawford, especially if, the pitcher before is going to force the bullpen to be a little bit overused just to get out of the game.
Right.
If that's how Houck ultimately ends up going about things. But I think as well, this is a great time for Crawford to build up his confidence and also show the Red Sox that, he could turn into a Garrett Whitlock type long reliever for the future. And, even if he does, set the world on fire as a starter, it's never a bad thing to have too much good starting pitching depth.
Yeah, there's no such thing as too much depth, no matter what position you are, but especially for the Red Sox when it comes to starters. We saw it last year that starters could not stay healthy for the life of them. And if this were to happen, it's already starting to happen this year already before the regular season's even started. But if this happens later in the season and there are capable guys there because they were able to have the full off season with the Red Sox being able to train properly, get their bodies ready for MLB action, then it's only going to benefit them further down the line, whether that's this season, next season. But you can never have too much depth, no matter what sport you play, because at some time or another, you're going to face some injuries, you're going to face some adversity, and you're going to need guys to step up. And if you don't have it, or they're not ready, you're going to run into a problem like the Red Sox had last year.
Right. Couldn't agree more. And, another guy who could play a big role in that is Nick Pivetta, the fifth starter. And we're going to speak more in depthly about Pivetta going into our third and final segment of this episode. But before we do that, I just want to talk to you about FanDuel. So the tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in the action than over on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. So just go over to fanduel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. And then you can wager on everything from the money line to point scorers to which team will be cutting down the net. All is over on the app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And especially if you're feeling confident about the Sox going into the season, whether it's player props or whether it's they make the playoffs or the World Series, odds are good right now. So before they start getting hot, make sure to go over and get your bets in. So don't miss your chance at a shot for a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go over to fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. So looking at the final position in this Red Sox rotation, Nick Pivetta. I was honestly surprised that he's in the fifth spot, but I think that this is sort of saying this without saying this. He's on a very short leash, and this will really be his time to define if he's a starter or if they need to move him to the relief.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to who else do they have to fill that number 5 spot. And I think too that they're giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he did have COVID. He did get it really bad and was really struggling with his strength and his stamina and just kind of getting his routine back. So I think they will give him a little bit more leeway than say, Tanner Houck or someone. But yeah, this is a big season. It's a big start for Nick Pivetta. We can't say enough about his durability last year for the Red Sox. And you need somebody who's going to fill that role, to eat innings, but we also need someone to eat innings effectively. And your durability can only go so far. Yes, it was great having that dependability, knowing he's going to be on the mound every 5 days. There was nothing stopping him from getting him on the mound. But this spring, I really thought we'd see a little bit better performances from him. And again, it could just be him, trying to get back from COVID. I don't know how it's affecting him present day, but we do know that right after he was recovered enough to get back on the field, it was tough for him. So hopefully it's just some of that and he can shake that off. But I'm really interested in Pivetta because I was really high on him. Like he was kind of my X factor before, and he still could be an X factor because if he can be, the Nick Pivetta that's reliable, that can go out there and give you 6 innings, 2 hits, and strike out 8, that's what you need from him. And if he can be that on a consistent basis in the 5th spot, that's huge for the Red Sox. And then you give the ball back to Corey Kluber on the next game. That is huge for Boston. Can he do that? I don't know. Does he, again, potential? Yes. But this is a really important first few games for Pivetta because we've mentioned there's injuries here, but these guys are going to come back and they're going to have to figure out where they stand in this rotation, whether it's starting rotation, whether it's the bullpen. And I don't think anybody, or Nick Pivetta in particular, I don't think, Pivetta, Crawford, Houck, Whitlock, I don't think any of those guys are exempt. I think that everyone's on the hook to potentially go back to the bullpen, even Pivetta.
And I think as well, one thing with Pivetta being in that 5th spot, he's the definition of what a 5th spot starter is. He's going to allow 2 to 4 runs, and that's sort of
right.
Semi what you expect from a 5th starter. I remember, Martin Perez, 2 or 3 years ago. That's relatively what he would do for the Sox outside of, obviously when he had that breakout season with the Rangers last year.
Right.
Completely different pitcher. But the one thing as well that I just noticed about Pivetta is, with his ability to eat up innings, we saw him be able to sometimes go, 5, 6, 7 even. I even remember, obviously he had that complete game last season, but I think this 5th spot is a perfect way for him to continue to build up. I mean, when you really look at his game logs from spring training, his first start, 1.2 innings, his second, 2 innings, and his last 2 starts, only 4 innings. And so you can't 100% expect this guy to go out and give you a strong 5 to 6 innings when he just hasn't had that amount of time to really be able to build up after COVID. I think as well, when you look at what he did in his last start, allowing 4 earned runs and making 84 pitches in just 4 innings. And so I think that this is a great way to ease him into the season and get him right before he really needs to build up for a long stretch of 162.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. You have to build yourself up, and you have to make sure that you are able and stable enough to go out there for the 162 game season. It's a grind. It's a very, very long season. And to be able to do that and not miss a start is huge. And hopefully that can be said for the same thing this year. But if not just Pivetta, not just Crawford, not just Houck, but if anybody is better served out of the bullpen, I just hope they make that decision sooner rather than later, because we've had pitchers on this show where they've talked about how it's different. Their mental routine is different. Their pregame routine is different. And it just kind of messes everything up if you're going back and forth. So if they can the Red Sox can kind of decide where everyone belongs, the sooner in the season, the better results I think they'll get from everyone.
Right. And I think, a good deadline for that is like the beginning of June. You know what I mean? Especially when Paxton, Bayo and Whitlock all come back, and you're really able to see what you do have from some of those guys. And I think as well, it's nice to see Josh Winkowski, getting a defined role as a multi-inning reliever, ended up having a great start, in the game a few days ago against the Pirates. The win 7-4, ended up pitching 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, and 2 strikeouts. And I'm excited to see if he's able to capitalize off of this opportunity and show the Red Sox that he is a viable pitcher to be in that spot for the long term. And we don't see sort of like the back and forth of Boston to Worcester, sort of like we saw last season. But, the other thing that I want to point out as well, and we've talked about this a ton leading into, March 25th, but, with that essentially being tomorrow, Jorge Alfaro ended up hitting a 2-run home run in that game against the Pirates. And the Sox got to make a decision not only with him, Tapia, Nico Goodrum as well. And so very curious to see how everything shakes out with that. But we're going to update you not only on this podcast, but also, over on Twitter as well. So, if you want to follow us over there, it's LO_Red Sox. But, if you also want to stay tuned in, and if you came from the Carrabba's Pod and you enjoyed this podcast and this conversation, or if you're just a regular listener and you've never subscribed, make sure to subscribe over on YouTube or whatever audio platform that you listen to. Posting 5 days a week, and it's going to be like that till the end of the season. And so if you want to stay updated about everything that's happening about the Sox, like I said, make sure to subscribe. But also make sure to follow Lauren and I over on Twitter. I'm Jake Iggy, and also Lauren's 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. We're not only going to be, tweeting updates regarding the team over on the Locked On Red Sox Twitter account, but, we also post our personal stuff too of just different things that we see to help keep you posted, and also to continue the conversation and get Red Sox Nation as excited as possible going into opening day. But we greatly appreciate all the support throughout this offseason and for you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. You can find Locked On Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube. But we greatly appreciate everybody tuning into this episode. We hope that you have a great rest of your day. We'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox. Peace.